Hello and welcome to the Penalty Box.
If you are firm and you are sure that you can move and you can score.
I'm Peter Clottey, and today we'll be looking at some developments ahead of the World Cup next month in Brazil. We'll be looking at some big stars who failed to make up their teams, both in English and the French teams. I have my penalty box experts here, and today we'll be looking critically at some of these issues ahead of the World Cup. So experts, Gaël Clichy, Samir Nasri, Ashley Cole failed to make up for the World Cup in their respective teams, both for the French team and the English team. What say you?
I think what Deschamps was afraid of is a repeat of the South African World Cup when, Anelka and other players in the French team had a, dissent and the team broke up before they even started the World Cup. So in that sense, it might have been a wise choice because, Nasri is known for being a mercenary of sorts or very, hot-tempered.
The coach of the French team is looking for some youngsters, for some new faces, and just to break down the history of bringing all those famous pictures on the ground once again.
I don't think it's any surprise that either of those two were left off of their team. I mean, the French talent has never been the issue for the French team. It's how they gel together. It's taken them time. I was mentioned the disaster that happened in South Africa with Patrice Evra putting together the protests against the removal of their teammate. And they never got off the ground there. So it's going to be a matter of whether or not they can really gel as a team, come together and participate in this World Cup like everyone expects them to be able to do.
Some argue that Samir Nasri is playing wonderfully for Manchester City in the English EPL. I mean, he was one of the significant players in the setup of Pellegrini's team. Some people think he has a lot to prove, despite the fact that the French team struggled to qualify, to Brazil.
I don't think that he was the only reason that he was not in the national team and the French team is struggling for the World Cup. Yes, big names, big faces are there, making some problems or making some causes to go forward. In 21st century especially, new team will make more success than the old team.
You can't bring all of the players. He's not thinking about such things as off-the-field issues and all that when it comes into it, because Evra was actually named to the squad despite the trouble that he gave, even though he's going to have that 5-match suspension. But this is a matter of personnel, and he just didn't stack up to be able to do anything.
And I'll argue in the sense that Samir Nasri did have a wonderful year with City. I mean, they ended up winning the title. Him and Yaya Toure in the middle played a huge role. But in the end, I think it comes down to, Samir Nasri not being able to perform for the French national team, And I think Deschamps acknowledged that, even though he performed for club, he did not show up during the qualifiers.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Now, let us not forget about Ashley Cole. I mean, he's been there 107 caps for England, and he has the experience. He's always performed for England. What happened here?
Well, Leighton Baines happened. The past couple of years that he's had for Everton have been tremendous. He's been one of the best at his position in the EPL. I think it's, again, it's just a matter of having somebody who, Leighton Baines is younger than Ashley Cole. Ashley Cole has the experience, but England isn't lacking on experience.
As my experience says, that two kinds of players are not playing very well. Because, first of all, who knows that no one is replacing him, no one is substituting him, and those who cannot play anymore. I think these two coaches are looking for those players who are looking for making a permanent place in national
They're
team.
hungry. They're hungry for that play.
No disagreement there as far as, the youth and Ashley Cole especially be replaced by Leighton Baines. Leighton Baines has a free kick challenge. This guy's a kick taker. He brings that, shooting range, skill that Ashley Cole probably cannot provide.
Let us not forget that there have been a series of protests in Brazil ahead of the World Cup. What do you make of that?
International events, they bring these protests. You look at the London Olympics, the South African World Cup. Every country has, economic and social issues.
When some kind of big events are coming to your country, it is not for destroying your country. It means that making new investments in your country. When there is uncertainty, when there is not security, so players will go on for anyhow, but there won't be so much good people to watch and support their team.
You mentioned that the point of these events coming to countries is for investment. These protesters don't feel like that's happening for them. They feel like this is an investment for another group of people, for another class of people, that a class of people that's above them. That's why they're protesting in the first place. These are people who are displaced by the stadiums that are surrounding it that they've had to build in Sao Paulo and other areas. So they have legitimate gripes. And I think that a lot of people from FIFA should consider this in the future. We all know what's happening in Qatar. That isn't working out so well for them and their preparations either.
Some people argue that the problems of preparations ahead of the World Cup, is underscored by these protests, and that makes things pretty much a negative attention to Brazil, because everybody is looking up to Brazil. What is happening here? South Africa was able to get all its stadiums ready for the World Cup. And
exactly.
we are not even certain if the starting stadium for the World Cup will be ready in time for the World Cup.
As one of the Brazilian experts says, that such kind of protests are going on. But when such kind of big events are starting, that all people who are member of all these, part of all these protests, they will think positive.
Well, I appreciate all your thoughts. Well, this is about all time will permit us for today. Thanks for joining us once again in the penalty box. I'm Peter Clottey. Bye for now.